Hello.
Hello.
Working. Do I sound all right?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, great. Mhm.
Hey, I just shared my screen. Can you see that all right?
I can.
Cool. All right, I'll just wait a little bit longer to give people a bit of time to join, and then we should get into it.
Greetings.
So I'm going to start going through the slides. So if we go to slide 3, we've currently updated the documentation for getting started with AWS and GCE. And if we actually go here, there's some TLDRs for the necessary commands to use the provisioning to provision to AWS, and there's also the example to do it on GCE, as well as do it on other cloud providers with a full list of options there, AWS Packet, and then the other Kubernetes specific options, which are pod range, service cider, node counts, and DNS. And then we've also been working on a CI status dashboard, and here we've uploaded our screenshots that we've got so far. And here under project, how this works is you've got the project that's being tested, and then you've got a build column. And under the build column, this is where it builds the artifacts. So this is the status of that. So it was successful or it failed. And then it does it for either the current stable release or it does it for the head on master. And these cycle through, we're planning to have these cycle through every 6 hours. And then it moves on to the deployment stage where AWS, Azure, Bluemix, GCP, GKE, Packet, where we'll do a deploy to those clouds, and then we'll run end-to-end tests to verify the deployment. And then we have a deployment view, which is a more defined or scoped view of the deployment. So here we're looking at just the Prometheus deployment on AWS, and we can see under the status column whether that job succeeded or failed, and then the sure hash of the binaries or the artifacts that it's using, and these link upstream to GitHub. And then it also gives you a prefix of the branch that it ran on, or whether it was a tag or a stable release or a beta version. And then we have job IDs, which link to the pipeline where you can see the commands that were ran. And then the pipeline, which is a full view of all the jobs, which would be after building the artifacts, build the container, then do the deployment. And then we have the date and times that these jobs ran. And then this is the additional mocks here. And then we have hover state, which is when you hover over a success badge, it'll bring up extra details. And we're also going to incorporate some features so that when projects from Kubernetes down, which are actually normally deploying on top of the Kubernetes cluster, if a Kubernetes deployment fails, they're all going to fail and we're going to get a board of red, which we don't want. So we want to be able to test and verify that if the Kubernetes cluster fails, we can actually roll back to a known good version of Kubernetes and deploy to that. And then we have more dashboards showing the features and the icons of failed. And this is the notification that it failed on the current stable release, but it successfully deployed on the previous one. And then this is a pipeline view, and this is the jobs we see here. And then we have links that go upstream to the actual job. And then we're going to add filters so we can actually filter multiple projects on particular clouds. And then the cloud filter, which allows us to go, okay, we want to look at this on just GCE or just Packet, or we could do all of them. And then a status filter, so we can filter a particular branch, a particular release, or all the succeeded or failed jobs. And then expanded deployment details, where we can look at the particular commit that triggered that build, and then the link to the user, and then also the artifacts that were collected or used during that deployment. So we completed a demo to the TOC on Tuesday, August 15th. And then there's an issue on GitHub, which we're planning to respond to today, surrounding integration with the Tectonic installer, which they're also using a Terraform code base. So it would be nice to try and take a modular approach to the Terraform code so other people can use it and can be worked on together with other people. So pipeline maintenance and development. There was a bug with Terraform that happened over last weekend where they switched from their Go plugin, which broke all versions of Terraform. So we had to build from source using a pinned version of master to alleviate that. And we're also looking into ways to be able to add projects without requiring changes to the upstream repo, which is when running jobs with the GitLab CI YAML file, it has to be in the repo. So we're actually making changes now to be able to make that external, and it does not have to be in the repo or the branch to be able to do builds. It's in progress. we want to be able to test each project individually, because in the current pipeline view, we're limited to only being able to deploy all the projects at once. So we're in the process of splitting them out. So Core DNS can individually trigger a Kubernetes cluster and then individually trigger a deployment and then provide extra details and the triggers that it uses to get those deployments. Pinnings for version of etcd to use or version of CNI to use, as well as when it's wanting to deploy the actual project, it can go, I also want to deploy this version of Prometheus along with Core DNS. So these are the features we're trying to work on at the moment. We'd like to automate the GitLab install and setting that up so that anyone can create a GitLab instance, and then it will automatically clone down the upstream cross-cloud, cross-project repos and set it up so that you can incorporate your project that's with the CI system. And so what's next? So we have a planned demo with Prometheus on August 23rd, and then Core DNS on Thursday, 24th. And then we're going to be presenting to Clinton and the Kubernetes Storage SIG testing group on August 30th. And then we're going to be also presenting to the governing board in person when we're at OSS in LA in September. So we're planning to add the new project Fluentd, so we can also do testing and deployments of that. And we're also in the process of adding Bluemix as a supported cloud provider to be able to deploy to. So as mentioned, we're also going to do a demo to the CNCF end user committee on Thursday, October 12th. And we're pending demos with Bluemix Azure, Fluentd, gRPC, and Linkerd when we add the project support. And there's also planned implementation for Azure. And we're currently still in the design phase of the mocks that are in the README at the moment. So when we move out of that, we'll be starting implementation, and hopefully we'll be able to demo that after it's been implemented. Any questions?
Hi, this is Aaron. Yeah, I'm listed as SIG testing. I continue to not have paid much attention to this, and I apologize, but to sort of help me catch up, link to these slides in the meeting notes, if it's not there already, would help me broadcast this information to the appropriate folks on my end. And I'm also trying to understand, are you using GitHub issue milestones or projects to sort of help track some of the stuff you presented as in progress? I'm trying to figure out.
On the cross-cloud repo upstream, we're posting issues up in here. So there's the projects. So we have milestones and issues attached to these. And then there's the list of issues, some of which we're working on, like adding Linkerd support to cross-cloud. So we're trying to collaborate there as well.
Right, I got that. My thing was the, like you were just talking about how Azure is coming up. And so I don't see that on either the project boards, and I don't see a milestone associated with it. So I'm assuming like it's that level of forecasting what the roadmap is like, when or where these things are going to land. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. I come to this from the perspective of the Kubernetes repo has lots and lots of issues, and unless I know which milestone those issues belong to, I don't actually know when they're going to land or where they're going to.
So we should link them.
But as usual, this all looks awesome. I apologize for showing up late. I went to some Hangout URL that was on the calendar invite. Maybe that was out of date. when or where will a live version of this dashboard be available? These screenshots look great.
Yeah, we're still designing it at the moment, so we've just got to get out of that. And once we've got a solid design, we'll start implementing. So I would imagine we're probably going to be in the design phase for at least another 3 weeks.
Okay, that makes sense. And the other question I probably missed, what's the cadence you would expect these sorts of things to be running on?
The dashboard, or
Yeah, so I'm looking at the dashboard. Is this a snapshot of like what a nightly dashboard would look like, or a daily dashboard or something?
I think we're going to try start with just a 12-hour cadence. So every 12 hours, it'll just rerun every job there and then cycle through 12-hour reruns.
Okay. I think those are all the silly questions I have for now. Just sort of as a meta level thing, you know, I apologize that I don't necessarily show up until just the moment of. I'm wondering if it would be helpful if we could get some of the agenda notes slotted into the CI working group's agenda ahead of time, because if I will take the upcoming planned items and see if I can drum up some interest to get more folks to show up based on updates you may have the next session. But being able to look at the agenda and see what's coming up would also be helpful to maybe get more interested people.
Yeah, thanks. We'll try to get those out earlier and then we can get it out.
Cool. As usual, this is awesome stuff. Thanks.
Thanks.
Aaron, is there anything specific you can think of that would be of interest for upcoming talks? Or I know you're asking about some of the items that would be on the roadmap, or is there anything specific you're thinking about or that other groups may be interested in?
I wish I could give you a concrete answer there. I may have even said this the last time. I know that there might be some interest in understanding how or the ways in which this could overlap with the conformance testing effort around Kubernetes. You know, various people are trying to figure out a way to demonstrate that their Kubernetes cluster is conformant. And Heptio put together a tool called Sonobuoy. Maybe demonstration of something cross-cloud related that uses Sonobuoy to exercise a Kubernetes cluster could be really interesting to some folks. I say that not having looked too closely at it myself, but it seems like that is the path towards actually exercising and testing conformance of a Kubernetes cluster that has the most momentum behind it. And so Sonobuoy is just basically a program that runs the Kubernetes end-to-end tests and then grabs configuration about the, it dumps the various Kubernetes resources and some information about how the Kubernetes cluster was configured. And so I would think that if the various cross-cloud deployments that your efforts are standing up, if they are compatible or can be scraped by Sonobuoy, that would be a good thing. If they can't, it would be useful information to understand why not. I'm not necessarily sure if that would mean that this is a gap in Sonobuoy's assumptions or if it's a gap in how things are deployed. But I think of this like this, if you're looking at collaborating with the folks from CoreOS on their Terraform modules that they use to install Tectonic, this might also be something they have in the back of their minds. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's really popping off the top of my head. I've been kind of buried in Kubernetes issue and owners files administrivia, so I don't have a ton more insight from a cross-cloud testing perspective. It seems like you're doing all the right things and showing it to all the right people, though, that's for sure.
The conformance testing is really important to us, specifically to make sure the Kubernetes, all the Kubernetes clusters that are deployed, we can point to specific releases that have feature set and what the compatibility is, and ensuring the validation of the conformance test is on the forefront of all that.
Yeah, totally. And I haven't looked in depth at the set of scripts that you're running, but I believe you essentially end up running the E2E tests with a regex that only runs tests that have the word conformance in them, which is effectively how Sonabuoy does it as well. So it's not like you have any tests that live in your code base. You're just running the tests that live in the Kubernetes code base using artifacts that are produced by the Kubernetes project. That's all cool. It's just Sonabuoy seems to be this sort of extra level on top that's attempting to provide a standardized way of collecting information about the cluster under test, so that the end result is that somebody could take a look at your test results and your configuration and reproduce the same thing on their setup. The intent would be, for example, if a cluster is certified as conformant with the cryo runtime, right? And let's say OpenShift happens to get their version of their distribution certified as conformant using the cryo runtime, and then somebody sets up OpenShift, but they set it up with Docker version 1.11 or something like that. And they run the conformance tests and it shows that they're not conformant, and they start, jumping up and down wondering why this is. And so the idea is, because Sonabuoy is collecting additional information about the cluster itself, that could be used to identify that this OpenShift distribution is only conformant when it is run with this particular container engine, this particular version of this container engine, things of that nature. So it's just being able to get that extra introspection or metadata about the clusters that are stood up by CrossCloud would be a useful demonstration.
Cool. Thanks for that, Aaron. And doing a review of Sonabuoy and looking at how that could work with CrossCloud is on our list of items.
Cool. Yeah, review is too generous a phrase. It's something that I think is really neat and cool. Other people have actually reviewed it and gone hands-on with it. So please, checking it out. The fact that that's on your roadmap is super cool.
Yep. Awesome. Any other questions? There are a couple other folks joined.
I think that's all the questions I have this time. I'll see if I can't come up with more of a concrete list of questions for the next update.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. All right, I believe that finishes this working group, and we'll see you at the next one.
Cool, thanks all.
We'll be in LA on the 12th for the upcoming conference, and if anyone is there, feel free to reach out on the mailing list. Or we can meet up in LA. Depending on how the conference, what's happening there, we'll get out the agenda beforehand, and if there's any conflicts or anything, we'll let everyone know. Otherwise, the 12th is the next meeting.
Okay, sounds great.
Have a good one.
You too. Later all.